Kakadosh Boker Tov, we're continuing on Daf Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph. This is 97A1. So we were by the two dots where it says Shitze Atzve Siman. Right, this is the Siman, the mnemonic, in order to remember, right, what exactly we're going to be speaking about. So now we're going to start as follows. The explanation of Rava and the Machloke between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda was placed upon the Anacha that we're talking about Tfilin, right? They're not tied, and therefore you're not allowed to bring in the new tefillin, but maybe it's like a kamiyah. So the Gemara is going to speak about another explanation in what is considered old tefillin and new tefillin.
What's kamiyah?
Kamiyah is like an amulet. Okay, so it says the Gemara, and now that Rav, the father of Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, like comes and he says, Elu and Yeshanot, what does it mean that there's going to be old tefillin, that you're allowed to bring it into the city? As long as it's got the straps of the tefillin and they're tied to the tefillin. But if it's chadashot, yesh bayan retzuot velo mekusharot. But if it's going to be new ones and they have retzuot, right, but they're not tied to the tefillin. Okay, so if you're going to tell me, so according to everybody, a person is not going to be toreach to make such an amulet in a tzura tefillin, but not like a Rava, right? That he says it's a machlok tanaim, because it doesn't make sense. Saying if you're already making an amulet, usually the amulets were something here, used to make it. You're going to make it the exact same, like a tefillin. Doesn't make sense. So says the Gemara, velanvinhu mianav. So why don't you just tie the retzuot derech aniva, and that's how you're going to come and bring in the tefillin. Remember that the way you're allowed to make a kesher aniva on Shabbat. Kesher aniva is like a tie, a bow knot, right? A bow tie, right? Which means that the type of a knot that you do usually for a tie is a way that with one hand you could actually unravel it, right? It's not a knot which is a mamash doraita that you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. You're allowed to make a bow knot on Shabbat. So Amar Rav Chasta says Rav Chasta, so tomeret aniva psula b'tefillin. So you see from here that if you made a knot, right, of a type of a bow knot on the tefillin, it's pasul, it's not kosher, right? Because you see from here that even the fact that we actually permitted it, right, to bring it in, but we didn't permit to do it this way, to do an aniva, but it doesn't help. So Abaye says, Rabbi Yehuda letameh, Rabbi Yehuda goes according to his reasoning. The Amar that he says, aniva kshira me'aliyatahi. Says, no, really be'emet, Rabbi Yehuda goes according to his reasoning. According to him, if you make a kesher aniva on Shabbat, it's a good knot. If you're going to make this bow knot on Shabbat, it's a good knot, and therefore you're going to be chayav. So because of that, he didn't mention this concept, because according to him, not because he holds that if you did a kesher aniva, it's not good on a tefillin. The opposite, if you did it on Shabbat, you're going to be chayav. So because you're going to be chayav, if you do it on Shabbat, that's why it's not going to help.
They want to establish that the type of knot is not me'akev and tefillin.
Exactly. We were trying to push it off, that maybe it's not me'akev on tefillin, but to do with Shabbat, it is me'akev according to this one, according to Rabbi Yehuda, because it's going to be a good knot, and therefore you're not allowed to do it on Shabbat. So we never mentioned it. So Ta'amad aniva kshira me'aliyatahi. But this is only because that the bow knot is actually a good knot. Halavachi, but if it wasn't so, aniv lehu, right, you're going to come and you're going to permit it, right? Are you really going to permit this? Ve'amar Rav Yehuda beredder of Shmuel bar Shira mishmederav kesher shel tefillin halacha leMoshe misinaihu. Ve'amar Rav Nachman, and says of Nachman ve'no yehen lebar, and the nicer one is on the outside. Yeah,
ornamentation.
Exactly, meaning the nicer, meaning the way that it looks should always be on the outside.
The letter shin, you mean?
Yes, that's what it says here in the footnote. We're talking about the sheen of the bite of the tefillin of the rosh has to be on the outside, right, and not on the inside.
That's not a kesher.
Which one?
That's not a kesher.
No, we didn't say the kesher. No yehen. The kesher was the first part. The first part we said that kesher shel tefillin is halachah Moshe misinai. And Rav Nachman comes in and says that no yehen, which is the beauty of it, right, the adornment has to be also on the outside. So what is the adornment? Kesher is a knot. Yeah? You ever heard of a daf kesher? With the children, when they bring home a daf kesher.
No. So,
okay, fine. But the concept of a kesher is a knot, tying two things together is called a kesher. Or if a person has a connection with someone, they have a kesher with someone. Okay? So here when it talks about the concept of a kesher, or that is halakha Moshe Sinai, here it says the dalid, it's what tefillin shel rosh, or the yod of the tefillin shel yad, and together with the shin, right, at the bite of the tefillin shel rosh, so therefore you have the name of a shakai, that is halakha Moshe Sinai. Okay, fine. Okay. So says the Gemara, the aniv lehu ke'en kshira didhu. What does that mean? We could actually do the halacha Moshe Misnai even without the knot. Why? You made the bow knot, right, like a kshira, like a regular knot. So therefore, according to that, it comes out that it's going to still be okay. Because if you did the bow knot like a regular knot, so therefore obviously it's going to be okay according to Abaye. Because again, according to Abaye, it was a anibak kshira me'aliyata. It was a good kshira. It was a good knot. Okay, fine. Amar Rav Chasta Amar Rav. Says Rav Chasta Neimer Rav. Halokeach tefillin mimi she'eno mumche. If you're going to purchase tefillin from somebody that's not a mumche in ilchot tefillin, yeah, bodek shtaim. Yeah, so you have to check both tefillin. Shel yad ve'achat, shalosh. So you're going to check 2 tefillin, right, of yad and 1 of the rosh, or shtaim shalosh ve'achat shel yad, or 2 of the rosh and 1 shel yad, which means you have to check 3 tefillin. If all 3 tefillin are kosher, so then you know that the seller is going to be muhsak and you're allowed to buy from him. So imagine right now I go, right, or somebody's going to come and they're going to buy from me. Now, I'm not a mumche in ilchot tefillin in order to come and start buying, selling. So how do you know that the tefillin that I'm selling you are kosher? So what do you have to do? You have to come and you have to check, right? You have to check whether it's going to be 2 of yad and 1 of rosh, or 2 of rosh and 1 of yad. Once you've checked 3 tefillin in total, now again, tefillin here, we're not talking about pairs. We're talking about individuals. Because that's what we said. We're saying you're checking 2 tefillin of yad and 1 tefillin of rosh, or 2 of the rosh and 1 of yad. But once you've got 3 in total, now that's it. He's considered like he's got this cheska kashrut, and therefore you're allowed to actually come. He's got like a, how do you say cheska kashrut? Chazaka. He's got a, I don't know.
Cheska kashrut is on the level.
Which one?
A level of kashrut.
Yeah, he's got this chazaka that you already know that he's selling kosher tefillin, and therefore you don't have to check him out.
I wouldn't say it's confirmation. Because if I don't know what let's say I'm selling furniture, but if I don't know anything about wood, I may buy a good supply from a good vendor, and sometimes I may buy a bad supply from a different vendor, because I don't know anyway the quality. So it's a matter of luck.
But I'm not understanding you. Are you trying to argue in the Gemara?
You ask an expert. Ask an expert.
Okay.
Yes.
We go by chazaka. Chazaka
but
means
again, if I'm only a broker, because I have a store, but I don't know what the commodities. If I don't know the quality of the commodities.
if you're going to do that, so then that's your problem. You have to now start checking on someone else.
Saying, if the vendor, if the seller,
We're talking about tefillin.
yes.
Okay.
If the guy has a store, Moshe coming to from Daniel buying from the store. Daniel has a store tefillin.
So he doesn't have a chazaka.
It's nothing to do with chazakah. Listen to what I'm trying to say.
Objection overruled.
It's nothing to do with the
Fine.
rule. You're not getting to the essence of my point. My point is, somebody at a store is selling Judaica. He doesn't know anything about tefillin.
So he doesn't have a chazaka. If he doesn't know, he doesn't have
He
a
just
chazaka.
say he doesn't know. You don't understand what I'm saying. You don't understand what the Gemara maybe is saying. He's saying the Gemara is saying
Fine.
that the owner of the store does not know. How do you know if he knows? How do you know if it's okay or not? Because maybe if he has 3, then it's good. But it's okay. I understand it. However, he bought these 3 good tefillin from somebody who does good tefillin.
Fine.
But
Let's
tomorrow he
continue.
may buy something from a bad one. He doesn't know bad from good. Or
Says the
good from bad.
Gemara, manashach, right? He
doesn't
says,
know.
I don't understand. How do you test him with this? Im echad gavra kazavin. Yeah, if this person is buying it from one person, so livdok, right? O shalosh shel yad, o shalosh shel rosh. If he's buying it from the same, meaning this person that's a seller, he's buying it from the same person, just check or 3 of yad or 3 of rosh. V'imitre tlata gavre zavin. And if he's buying it from 2 or 3 different people, so kol chavechal b'bedika, every single tefillah needs to be checked, right? Why? Because they're going to be the kashrut of a part of them is not going to be mochiach on the rest. So says the Gemara, right?
There you go. I'm not arguing with the sense.
So therefore he says, leolam mechad gavra zavin. So he says, really, be'emet, you're buying it from one person. Ubayin de mitmache b'shel yad u'shel rosh. He says, really, you're buying it from one person. So if you're buying it from one person, so what are we doing exactly? He says, no, you have to have a chazakah on the shel yad and also the shel rosh. Okay, so therefore that's why you have to do it in this way. Now, obviously, the Gemara is going to ask, why are you doing it in such a fashion of 2 and 1? If you want to make chazakot, you usually have to do 3. So the Gemara is going to say, "Eni zitzova tani Rabbi Bar Shmuel b'tfilin bodek shalosh shel yad v'shel rosh My love, o shalosh shel yad, or right shel yad, or shalosh shel rosh. Are we not talking about 3 or of yad, right, or of rosh? Answer is given a no. Shalosh men shel yad, right, and it says, and at least minimum one of them of rosh. That's what he's trying to say here. There's a chovah to check 3 tefillin. Okay, so that means one of them has to be minimum yad, and one of them has to be minimum rosh, but you have to check 3. Meaning that here, right, we are actually taking them as if to say as a whole and not separate, which means that you do have to be mitmachem in both. That's why he is obligated to check both, whether it's going to be yad and rosh, but he's not telling you 3 and 3. He's just telling you 3 in total. And minimum, one has to be rosh, one has to be yad. So says the Gemara, Rav Kana comes and he says, "B'tefillin bodek shtayim shel yad v'echad shalosh." I thought it was written by tefillin you could do 2 and 1. So you do have to do 2 of, or we said the opposite, right? So the Gemara answers, Hamani, it's Rebbe. This is Rebbe, because Rebbe says, Chazakah is going to be in 2 times. So therefore, since the Chazakah is going to be in twice, that's why he said that's why you're allowed to do it this way. So says the Gemara, fine. Rebbe, if you're going to tell me that this entire Braita is in Shitat Rebbe, so you must say, let's say the latter part of the Braita. The Braita says, V'chen batzevet hasheni. We're talking about in the second group of tefillin. V'chen batzevet hashlishi, or in the third group of tefillin. Which means if you're going to buy, right, a numerous amount of tefillin, so you have to check 2 tefillin, right, from one group. Now, if the tefillin become kosher, huchzak that entire group to be kosher. V'chen oseh b'tzvat hasheni. Now you're going to do the second group and the third group. So that means because of this, you have like 3 different groups that they're all going to be kosher, and you don't have to check again. So according to Rebbe, if you hold that a chazakah is in twice, so why are we mentioning now 3? Right? Imagine right now I'm getting a whole group, and I'm getting it from the same sofer. So I'm going to get one group from the sofer. So I don't have to check every single tefillin. All I have to check, and again, I'm the seller. I'm clueless. I have no idea what I'm doing. Right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to get checked, right? Part of the first group, part of the second group, part of the third group. Now, according to Rebbe, I don't need the third group, because according to Rebbe, twice is a chazakah. So what exactly is the Gemara saying that I have to check from this first group, second group, third group? You just told me that this right as Rebbe.
I thought that once we check the first group and we verify by looking at least 3 pairs, 2 arm, 1, that we don't have to check anymore after that.
Depends if
it's from the same guy.
No, that's what we're saying here. We're saying here you have to check. You're checking the 3 different groups because he gave it to you as a group, as a whole. So therefore, if you're buying a few of them, right, you have to actually check. That's what he's saying here. You have to check 2 tefillin from each group. If they found kosher, so that entire group is going to be kosher. Okay? So says the Gemara, Moder Rebbe bitzfatim. Rebbe is going to agree, right, bitzfatim, to mitrei tlata gavre zavin. Because many times you find that you buy groups of tefillin from different people, right? And therefore, since you're buying it from different people, that's why you cannot come and say that the kashrut of the group is going to be on just coming and now doing on the other group, because that's a completely different group. So therefore, you can't say that chazakah anymore. So it says the Gemara, Yahachiv so, afilu revi nami. According to you, so one second, if every single group you're getting it from a different guy, so then what about now the 4th or the 5th? That you should also check. Because if every single group is always going to be a different, person, you should continue going. Why all of a sudden after 3 you don't have to check anymore? It says the Gemara, you're right, 100%. You do have to check on the 4th and the 5th and the 6th and continue going. The hadiktani shlishi. So that which we learned now, the third group, la puke mechazakeh, to take out of the chazakah, which means that we're not going to be somech on din the chazakah. Uleolam afilu revi v'chamishi nami. But really, be'emet, the 4th and 5th also you have to do the same.
Rabbi, excuse me. I would assume that, let's say there's a store in Measuring that sells tefillin. They buy from the same sofer. So they buy 50 tefillin, 100 tefillin. But if it's from the same guy,
if it's from the same guy, you're right. If it's in the same guy, you do not need to do it again. You're 100% correct. Here we're talking about when you're taking from different people. So since you're getting it from different people, that's why. It's not always that you get, you understand? It's not always that you're going to get it from the same person.
Sometimes the same thing with the bdika of the fruits, something like the cherries or something. If you check 2, it's okay. You can keep on.
No, that's a little bit different. There, it's a chazakah on. Well, you're right. It has to do with this batch, because obviously, if you have to get another batch, you have to check it again. But you're right. It is something very similar, which means that once in a while, right, in certain halachot of bedikat tolaim, they will tell you that you have to check it. Now, they don't require you to check the entire thing. They do a spot check. So the spot check is, for example, let's say I'm going to buy a triple wash lettuce, right? And it's what's it called? And it's let's say from a Publix or from Walmart, and I open it up, and now I already know that lettuce in America is cleaner than in Israel or in other places. So therefore, I would still tell them, you're right, do a spot check. How do you do a spot check? Take a few different pieces of lettuce from different areas, and you check it. Now, you're right. Obviously, I can't say that because I spot check this bag, now the other bag is kosher. You understand? I mean,
Yes.
you would still have to do it on the next bag. You're right. Okay, fine. We said in the Mishnah, where are the two dots, where it says mitzan bitzvatim or b'krichot. Whenever if you find them right in a group or they were tied together. It says my tzvatim, my krichot. What does it mean tzvatim or krichot? It says Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, says Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, henen tzvatim, hen krichot. Right? It's the exact same thing. Right? The only difference between them is tzvatim are zuve, which means zugot. Okay, which means tefillah achat of rosh and tefillah of yad. So that's what it means, tzvatim. Right? It's like I don't know you want to call it in English. It's like a tzevet. It's a group. What do you mean by a crew? Thank you, a crew. Which means that you have both of them together. They're both together. So it's together. Tefillin yad rosh, yad rosh, yad rosh, yad rosh. That's called tzvatim. Krichot, they're krichan tuva. Krichot is you have a whole bunch of tefillin together, and they're not separated. Exactly, they're individual pairs, so they're not united. That you don't have the yad with rosh together, yad with rosh together. No, you have yad, rosh, yad. You have everything together. It's all a balagan. So that's called krichot. Okay, fine. So in both of them, it's exact same halacha.
That's just too many to carry.
Yeah. Fine. Next, two dots. Yeah, machshicha lehen umevian. So he said that if you have to wait there, and you're going to wait until it becomes nighttime, and then you can bring them to the house. So says the Gemara, why? Why don't you just bring it in group, right? Why do you have to wait there until it becomes nighttime, Motzei Shabbat, and now you're allowed to bring it in? Just bring it in group. Amar Rav Yitzchak ben Rav Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda, right? He was explaining to me these words of Abba. Kol shilu machnisan zug vechalot kodem nishkiat hachama. If I would start bringing them in group by group, and I would finish before the shekia, so then machnisan zug. Then I would be able to bring them in group by group. V'lo, but if not, machshich alehem, I'm going to wait until nighttime. Umevian, and then I'm going to bring them into my house, right? Because since anyway I'm not marviach, I'm not gaining anything from bringing them in Shabbat. So then, right? Because anyway I'm going to have to still go back outside when it's still nighttime, when it's Motzei Shabbat. So therefore, they didn't permit us to be mechalel Shabbat in order to bring them inside. Meaning, if I was gaining from it, so then they permitted you to be mechalel Shabbat, and therefore you're allowed to come and you're allowed to bring it in on Shabbat. But if you're not gaining from it, which means that anyway on Motzei Shabbat, you're still gonna have to go out and bring in more. So therefore, they didn't permit you to bring it in on Shabbat. Okay. Next, uvesakana, during the time of sakana, mechasan veolech. You have to cover it and then you continue. What does that mean? Tanya, we learned in the right of sakana mulicham pachom bechom ramot. I thought we said in time of sakana, you have to take it out, for less than 4 amot each way, which means if you're carrying it less than 4 amot each time, so it's not considered that you're carrying, and then you're until you get to the city. So Amar Rav says, Lakash, that's not a question. Habe sakanat nochri, habe sakanat listim. The Mishnah was talking about a sakana which had to do from zirat shmad. For example, when they had, the Crusades or all these, the Romans, whenever they were making all these decrees against the Jews, that they prohibited to put on tefillin. So since the Goyim would kill him if they suspected that he was putting on tefillin, so he's not supposed to put himself in a sakana. So what does he do? He just covers it, right? It's that way, it's not a bizayon, and then he just continues. However, though, if it's sakanat listim, right, and now obviously, right, we're talking about a sakanat listim that maybe they're going to find him and then they're going to kill him. So then in such a scenario, right, what's he allowed to do? He's allowed to take it less and less than 4 amot. Okay?
So the steam would like to steal it from him?
Highwaymen, people would
Yes.
steal it and sell it.
Okay.
Or there's the government, one or the other.
Okay, fine.
The listing is the IRA.
So the steam must be not Jewish people, yeah?
Yeah. Fine.
Well, there could be also.
No, it could be
For
also.
what?
But,
They still feeling and sell it?
no, you never know.
Much kedusha.
Well,
Could be
I've known people that do that.
The
Not
pirates.
only tefillin, even the rimonim. It happened in Toronto. There was a person that in the rimonim and all the bete knesiot, they stole all the rimonim of the synagogue, and then they went and they were selling it. It happened the same in Gibraltar. Yeah, 1 million pounds limonin. Imagine how much silver there was. They went and they stole it, and they were caught. The Jews caught them.
How can you continue selling something like that?
No, they completely separated. No, they detached everything, and they found them detached. They found them detached, but they were able to find it.
The Jewish?
They were Hasidim. Yeah. Amar le Abaye. Abaye came and he says as follows. Yeah. Why are you coming and you're telling me in the matnitin, the Mishnah is talking about the sakanat of degilulin, we're talking about the sakana of goyim. Ema seifa. Let's say the seifa. Rabbi Shimon Omer. So he said, why is it that we were establishing the Mishnah in sakanat of degilulin? Ema seifa. Let's see the seifa. Rabbi Shimon Omer. Rabbi Shimon says, notran lechavero v'chavero lechavero. Kol sheken dav shamilta. So he says, once, what does the seifa say? The seifa says, what are you supposed to do? You start handing it off. So you do a handoff, right? I come, I give it to him. He comes, he continues. And you continue going until you get to the dominoes, until you get to the end. So he says, Kol sheken dav shamilta. He says, Kol sheken in such a place, right, in such a form, everyone's going to know what's going to happen. So then there's much more of a sakana in saving the tefillin. Meaning, what are we trying to say? We're trying to say that we're trying to save ourselves from the Ovdei Gilulim, that they're going to come and they're going to try to kill us because we have tefillin. So what are you doing? You're doing handoffs, right? So I'm the quarterback. I'm giving it to Richard's giving it to Jack, and we continue, and then to Jackie, and then to that's what? That's not going to make any noise. That's going to make even more noise. So says the Gemara, it's lacking part, and this is what it means to say. But medvarim, one of these words, the sakanat of the gulim. This is only to do with the sakanat of the guim. Aval b'sakanat listim, but if it's going to be sakanat listim, then you could take it less and less than daled amot. Rabbi Shimon says, you give it to your friend, right? So it's better to do it by giving it to your friend and giving it to your friend and continue going. What's the machloka between them? More savar pachot me'arba amot adif, right? One of them holds that doing less and less than 4 amot is better. But if you're going to tell me to give it to your friend, there's too much noise on Shabbat. More savar, and then it's like a chilul Shabbat, which is too much of a, that you don't need it. Meaning you're being mechalel Shabbat with too many people, and you don't really need it. More savar, another one holds no. It's better to give it to the handoff. If you're going to tell me it's going to be less and less than daled amot, sometimes it can happen you don't pay attention, then you are going to carry it for amot and Reshut Rabim, and then you're going to have a problem of a doraita you're carrying on Shabbat. Okay? So now says the Gemara, the same halacha would apply to the sun. What does it mean to the sun? So says the Gemara, right, as follows. It says the Gemara, the same halacha would apply to a child that's going to be born in the field. So you're able to hand off. Yeah, you give your baby to the other one, another one, and continue going until you get to the city. So, Beno my bayatim, what's his son doing in the middle of the fields? Yeah, what's his son doing there? The woman gave birth in the middle of the field, right? Which means that she couldn't stay in the field until the end of Shabbat. So it says, Maya filu hen mea. So he says, what did they say? Even if it's going to be 100 friends, because even though it's not good for the child, that you have 100 people carrying the child, afilu hachi hadifa. It's still better to do it in such a way, to do less and less, right? Right? That means to do it one by one, meaning handoff, than doing it less and less in daled amot, because again, they could forget and do a doraita.
The difference is that with the tefillin, the government could hurt you, but here they're not going to hurt you.
Yeah. But anyway, here it's actually interesting, because I would actually bring a proof from this Gemara that if, sometimes if you have people that everyone wants to hold the baby. So what you could actually tell them is, it says in the Gemara, tekashe leyada. It's a Gemara mefureshet, that it's not good to be passing them around like a football. Yeah, passing around children, babies, like a what's it called? It's not good for the baby. So here you have it. It's a Gemara mefureshet. Yeah, Tzadik Zayin Amud Bet. You have to remember that.
In a complete theory thing, if it's still connected to a being record, then it should be the mother.
What?
The umbilical
What's the connection?
Cord, talking about the umbilical cord.
That's it. Then she shouldn't be in front, no? If she could carry, she could go back to the city without any problem. In theory.
I don't think so. Why?
Because it's connected to the still. It's still like one.
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so.
I would probably say it. But obviously your opinion is
I don't think so. Rabbi Yehuda says, yeah, noten adam chavit. So a person is going to place a chavit,
Barrel.
Lechavero, a barrel, to his friend, and then again to his friend, and continue going even outside of the tchum. So says the Gemara, right? Velele Rabbi Yehuda, but he doesn't hold like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanam we learned in the Mishnah. Abema ve'akelim, an animal and the utensils, keraglei be'alim. They are like the ba'alim, which means that you go after the owner. The owner of the utensil or the owner of the animal, wherever he's allowed to walk, the utensil or the animal is allowed to go.
You can't go beyond the tchum. That's the idea. You can't go beyond the tchum.
Yeah, but the tchum of who?
It just says the person with a barrel, even if it goes beyond the owner's tchum.
And then and again, that's
the owner's tchum. It doesn't matter. Whoever has it at the moment, it's his tchum, like you're saying.
And that's why we're asking
Right.
from Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda is saying that we always go by the owner's tchum, not by the tchum of the guy that's carrying it. Yeah?
No. The opposite.
Does Rabbi Yehuda not hold of behema vekilim? This is a Mishnah.
Oh, you're right.
The Mishnah,
I said the person who borrows
right? The Mishnah says, right? Again, one more time. Yeah, let's go back. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Noten adam chavin lechavero v'chavero lechavero," even if it's outside of the tchum of the baalim. The Gemara is going to ask Rabbi Yehuda that you just said that you could go outside of the tchum of the owners, right? One second. There's a Mishnah mefuresha. The Mishnah Beitzah says, "Habehema vekilim keraglei baalim," which means that we always go by the owner's tchum. Which means I have no rights, even though my tchum is different than the owner's tchum. And I could still go out another 1,000 amot, right? Because, for example, we did it, he did 1,000 amot more here, and I did it more to the center. So I'm going to go out here. So I have an extra 1,000. You can't do that. You always go after the baalim. You have to go after the owner. So says the Gemara, Shakish mishum Levi Saba. Says that Shakish, the name of Levi Saba. And here, what are we dealing with? B'me'aran, we're talking about a case where you were shofech mayim, which means you are irui, right? Irui is to pour, right? So he says you're pouring the water from one barrel to another barrel, okay? And therefore, what's happening?
Goes as far as he can go,
and then you're pouring it into another one, okay? So then what happens? So he says, so that means only the water is going out outside of the tchum, but not the barrels. Rabbi Yehuda letameh, Rabbi Yehuda is going according to his reasoning. Te'amar, but he says, mamash, water has no mamashut. So therefore, since there's nothing which is really tangible to do with water, water could go outside of the tchum. The Tanam, we learned in the Mishnah Beitzah, Rabbi Yehuda poter b'mayim, right? Rabbi Yehuda says that it's going to be patur to do with water, taking it outside of the tchum. Why? In the Shem mamash was no mamashut. So therefore, what I'm doing is I'm allowed to go to the end of my tchum, meaning the tchum of the baalim, of the owners, pour it into another utensil. Then I could come and take that water until the end of my tchum, and then pour it into another utensil and continue going. Why? Because the water, there's no prohibition.
So
It's only the problem is the utensil.
So in
Okay.
this case, I want to ask a question. If
I
we,
want to say, is it?
yeah, of course, better.
No. Meaning, is it that you just didn't understand, or you just want to ask a question? Okay. Umay lo ta'alech zo. So he says, what does that mean? What exactly are we talking about right now? Okay, so he says, if you're telling me now, right, that it's only the water which is going out, and like the words of Levi Saba, so what are Chachamim coming to trying to say, right, that you shouldn't take it more than a gleba alea, right? Even Rabbi Yehuda holds the exact same thing. So what was such a question against Chachamim? Meaning, Chachamim are coming, they're asking a question of Rabbi Yehuda. What's the question against Rabbi Yehuda? Because he's saying the exact same thing as well. He's only just saying to do with water, not to do with a barrel. So he says, no. Lo yalech right? He says, lo yalech, what does that mean? Mashe bechavit zu yoter meraglei baalim. You have to add in the word chavit, right? Which means, no, the Chachamim also are coming and talking about the water, right? And they were not talking about the barrel. Because if they're both talking about the barrel, that means nobody's arguing, right? He says, no, even the Chachamim were talking about the water in the barrel. So, Emar d'shamale Rabbi Yehuda heicha de'bleam b'isa. He says, 1 second, I thought that Rabbi Yehuda only says this concept about water only if it's absorbed inside the dough, right? But heicha d'tzniu be'naihu, but if it's going to be a dain be'en, which means that it's still there, mishamale, are we saying that? So it says the Gemara, right? Hashta b'kedera, right? Amar Rabbi Yehuda lo batle. If in a case of a kedera, which is a food, which is cooked, Rabbi Yehuda says that it's not going to be batel through other food, and therefore you're not allowed to take it outside. Be'enayu batle. So he says, are you going to tell me be'en, it is going to be batel, and you're allowed to take it outside of the tchum? Right? Because that means if you're going to tell me in a kedera, it's not batel, so why would it be batel right now in be'en? Be'en means that you can actually see it. Titania was learned in a braita. Rabbi Yehuda says, Maimu melech batelim be'esa. If you have water and salt, which are mixed inside of a dough, it's batel. But it's not going to be batel in a kedera. Why? Because of the rotif. which
Gravy.
means the gravy or the sauce, right? He says, which means that even though the water is changing the taste and everything of the tafshil, at the end of the day, you could see it. And the fact that you could see it, the water, a woman that comes and she borrows, right, from her friend in order to cook a food, and all of a sudden now there's rotev right from the water, meaning there's liquid, there's sauce, whatever you want to call it, the gravy from it. So he says, so you see from here, it's like the reglesh tehen, it belongs to both of them. So now you have a problem. So Rabba comes and he says, you're right. We're talking about a case where the chavit already had shvita b'Shabbat, which means that we go like the tchum of the owners, right? That means it has its shvita of where it's dwelling on Shabbat, but the water was not. So therefore, right, the batla chavit legabe mayim. So therefore, it's batel the chavit to the water, right? Because since it's tafel, kidetzanam learned al Mishnah. If somebody's going to take out a live person, right, in a bed, right, from the private domain to a public domain, okay, he's going to be patur. Patur on what? Even on the mitah.
Rabbi, did you skip?
No.
Did you skip about the water that's from the river? It doesn't acquire a tlum of its own?
No, I didn't skip. I read it.
You said it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So he says, for example, if somebody's going to come and he's going to carry a bed, right, with a person that's alive, so what happens is he's going to be patur michuv chatat even on the mitah. Why? Mipnei shamitat felalo. Because the mitah is tafel to the living person. The same halacha would apply if you're going to take out food, right, less than like a shiur in a utensil, you're going to be patur even on the utensil because the kli is tafel to the ochlim, which means the fact that you don't have enough food, so you're exempt. You have the kli. Yeah, but the kli is secondary. The kli is tafel to the food, so therefore everything is going to be the same thing. So therefore it comes out that according to our Mishnah, the same thing. According to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, since the Ikar Retzon Baalim is passing the water, and the chavit is only the medium to get to the ends of passing the water from one place to another place, so therefore the chavit is tafel to the water. So therefore, since now the water is hefker, right, and therefore there's no gvul, there's no tchum to do with this water. So therefore, so too the chavit is going to be permitted also, and there's no problem. Chachamim that argue on Rabbi Yehuda, they say no, you can't take it more. They don't say that it's tafel. They don't say that it's secondary, and therefore there's going to be a problem. Okay? So Mativ Rav Yosef comes now and he's going to ask a question, and he says like this. Rabbi Yehuda says, B'shayera, when we're talking about a caravan, that they were in a bika, in a valley, and they're anusim. Why? Because they don't have water. So imagine, you have a caravan, they get stuck in a valley, and now there's no water. So what are they going to do? Noten adam chavi lechavero, bechavero lechavero, b'shayera. Right? So, says the Gemara, what are you allowed to do? You do what we just did. You give one to your friend, one to your friend, one to your friend, you continue going, right? You do a chain, right? And that chain, you're going to get there. So it says, B'shayra'im, only in a shayra you could do such a thing. Shelo b'shayra lo, which means if it's not going to be in a shayra, you cannot do such a thing. Okay? So he comes and he says as follows. Ela Rav Yosef. But rather, Rav Yosef says, because of this question, you see from here that they were only mekel in a shayera. If it wasn't a shayera, you can't just come and start passing along the chain. So the Gemara says, and Rav Yosef, or rather Yosef says, when we're dealing with the shayera, you're right. Our Mishnah is also dealing with a shayera. And ever since you're dealing with a caravan, that's why they were mekel to do
only
this.
Only a caravan?
Only a caravan. That's what we just answered. Yes. Only a caravan is permitted to do this.
What about the water and it's in the
also,
flowing
that's what we're talking
river
about.
and the barrel?
That's what we're talking about. Only a caravan.
Okay.
Only a caravan.
All right.
So Abaye says, "V'shayra afilu chavit shekanta shvita u'mayim shekanu shvita." He says no. Abaye comes and he argues and he says no. In a caravan, you have an extra leniency that even if it's talking about a chavit shekanta shvita or mayim shekanu shvita, right, in Shabbat, still you're allowed to take it outside of the tchum. Right, because they were more lenient to do the shayera, the caravan. Shelo b'shayera, if it's not with a shayera, so then it's a normal case. Chavit shekanta shvita, right? A chavit that was koneh shvita, umayim shelo kanu shvita, that's the only case where you could be lenient. So therefore, this is the second answer. Another answer, Rav Ashi Amar, hacha bechavit hefker askin. We're talking about the chavit was a hefker, and also the mayim was a hefker. So since both of them are going to be of hefker, right? So therefore, since both of them are going to be hefker, so according to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, they're not going to be koneh shvita, and therefore there's no tchum on their own. So therefore, it's going to be okay. Uman amrulo. So who's the Tanaim that they told to Rabbi Yehuda then they can't go more than the tchum of the owners. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. It's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. The Amar, but he says, Cheftzei Efker konin shvita. Cheftzei Efker, you're allowed to purchase shvita. What do you mean by shvita? You're allowed to purchase, and now it's going to stay there, dwelling. Okay, that's the concept. Umay lo te'alech zu yuter min hagel. So what does it mean that it's not going to go more than hagel be'alim? Lo yalechu elu, which is the chavit and the mayim, yoter mi kelim sheyesh lehem ba'alim. More than kelim that have ba'alim. Not the ba'alim, there's no ba'alim. It's efker. No, it means more than a utensil that has ba'alim. Meaning, just like a utensil has ba'alim, you have a tchum. So to here, even though they're efker, it has some type of a tchum. So you cannot come in afterwards and start carrying it more than that tchum. Okay? Fine, says the Mishnah. We're just going to do the Mishnah, and then Bli Neder on Sunday we'll continue with the Gemara. Okay? So says the Mishnah. Haya kore besefer al haiskupa. I'm going to show you the picture. Yeah? Here you have it.
How do you know there's a picture, Rabbi?
Because he prepared.
Yeah? I checked it before.
Thank you.
Yeah? So it says here like this, 1047. So he says here like this. Yeah? Haya kore besefer al haiskupa v'nitgalgel hasefer miyado. Remember, the iskupa is the door, the threshold, I think it's called, no?
Yeah, that's the
Threshold. Yeah, right here. This is called the iskupa. So imagine right now, I'm learning in my sefer, right? And remember, sefarim were not like this, right? It was a scroll. So therefore, what happens is all of a sudden, whoops, and it falls into the Reshut Rabim. Yeah? So I'm reading a sefer, v'nit galgel miyado, right? All the way here to the Reshut Rabim. Okay? So it says over here, golelo etzlo. So you're allowed to be golel etzeh to him, which means that you come and you start bringing it back, right? In order that there's no bizayon of kitvei HaKodesh, which means, again, we said it's a sefer. So therefore, we're going to be golel in order that you could actually come and see it, okay?
But that's if some of it stays in his hand, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
But if it's not,
Well, let's see.
uh,
So he says, Haya kore berosh hagag. What happens now if you're going to be berosh hagag? What does it mean, berosh hagag? Berosh hagag means you're on top of the roof. That's the next picture, 1048. So if you're on top of the roof, right? And now, v'nitgalgel hasefer miyado, ad shelo higia l'sara tfachim, it didn't get to the 10 tfachim, which means as long as it didn't get to the 10 tfachim, right, from the Reshut Rabim, that means it's still in the air, basically, okay, which is a makom ptur, gollo etzlo. You're allowed to bring it back. So again, here, you obviously have more than 10 tfachim. I don't know why I didn't draw it. Let me see here.
But it's,
No,
it's
he didn't
laying
do it.
against the side of the building. It's not in the Shusharabim.
Exactly. No, but that's why. If it's going to be
The
above 10
is
tfachim
very
from here,
small.
this is still considered a makom ptur. Since this is a makom ptur, I'm allowed to draw it up to
inside
me.
his own courtyard, isn't he?
No, but
Oh,
again,
that's a
it's outside.
boundary, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay? This is makom ptur. This is on the outside. So he says, but as long as it's going to be above 10 tfachim of the Reshut Rabim, I'm allowed to bring it down. Okay? He says, if it's right now within the 10 tfachim, sorry, which means that if it's going to be within 10 tfachim of the ground, which means I'm not allowed to bring it back to my gag, hofcho al aktav. So then what I have to do is, I don't know if this he has a picture.
Turn it over on the written side so the lettering is not exposed.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't have it. Okay. So basically you have to turn it over, which means that this side is towards the wall. Okay? Hofcho al aktav.
שלא יהיה ביזיון.
Yeah. Okay? So now he says, right? Rabbi Yehuda says, afilu, even if it's going to be within the 10 tfachim from the ground, en mesulak min haaretz ela kimlo machat, meaning even if it's not going to be mamash kimlo machat from the ground, right? Gollo etzlo, you're allowed to come and bring it back
As
to
long
you.
as it's not mamish on the ground.
Yeah. That's what he said. Kimlo machat, much just like a thin, like a needle.
A millimeter.
No, mamash something. Rabbi Shimon says, afilu ba'aretz atzmo, even if it's going to be, right, on the ground itself, gollo etzlo, you're allowed to do it. There's nothing of the Rabbanan is going to stand because of Ifnei HaKodesh, because of Kitvei HaKodesh. And here it's because of Shvut.
The reason
So because
it's,
of that,
Rabbanan is because only part of it rolled out.
Oh,
The thing,
Rabbi, thank you very much.
and that's what we're going to see.
Wonderful daf today, Rabbi. Thank you.
Very good.